Mr. Sullivan, you mentioned Israel's right to self-defense. Does the right to self-defense justify the level of human suffering we're seeing in Gaza right now?
Look, I think we have to take a step back and put in context what has happened since October 7th. On October 7th, you had a terrorist group, Hamas, come across the border from Gaza into Israel and massacre 1,200 people in a brutal and savage way. They then turned around and went back into Gaza and hid behind a civilian population, using civilians as human shields, using protected sites like hospitals and schools for military purposes, embedding themselves among the innocent Palestinian people, and continuing to fire rockets at Israeli cities, and continuing to go out on the airwaves and say, we're going to commit October 7th again and again and again, and go out and state, we're in a permanent state of war with Israel, and go out and state, we would like to see Israel's right to exist eliminated. So that is the reality that the IDF is contending with when it goes in. It doesn't have the opportunity to meet Hamas on a field of battle in a way in which civilians are off to one side and the terrorists are off to the other side. The terrorists chose to embed themselves among civilians, and that creates an incredible burden on the IDF, a burden that is unusual for a military in today's day and age. Now, that burden does not lessen the IDF's responsibility to act in a way that distinguishes between terrorist targets and innocent people, and to take every precaution to protect civilians and minimize the loss of life. It also doesn't lessen the burden, by the way, to ensure that humanitarian assistance flows in sufficient quantities that the Palestinian people have access to the food, water, medicine, sanitation that they don't just need, that they deserve as a basic matter of dignity of human beings. And so those are messages that we have conveyed quite clearly to the Israeli people. But what I think has been lost a little bit in this whole debate is the responsibility that sits with Hamas, who not only is doing all the things I just described to put the Palestinian people in a terrible position, but is also holding more than 100 hostages still to this day, men, women, children, in tunnels, in circumstances that are dire and deteriorating. So our position from the very first day of this conflict has been that Israel has the right to go after Hamas in these difficult circumstances, and also has the responsibility to do so in a way that comports with our values, with international humanitarian law, and with the strategic necessity to see the fundamental difference between innocent Palestinian people and these evil terrorists of Hamas. And that is a position that we have stated publicly. It is a message we drive in very granular terms privately in the conduct of these operations, and we will continue to do so as we go forward.